President Trump addressing expectations for his high-stakes summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday. He says the sit-down will give him a chance to get a better sense on just what the Russian leader has in store.
This is really a feel-out meeting, a little bit. And President Putin invited me to get involved. He wants to get involved. I believe he wants to get it over with. Now, I've said that a few times, and I've been disappointed, because I'd have like a great call with him, and then missiles would be lobbed into Kiev. I'm going to be telling him, you got to end this war, you got to end it. And he wasn't going to mess with me.
Joining us now is Kurt Volker. He's a former U.S. ambassador to NATO. Set up the meeting in your mind for us. What is I understand the goal of President Trump. I'm not sure what the goal is of Vladimir Putin.
Well, Vladimir Putin wants to see what he can extract from Trump. He wants to see whether Trump would agree to commit to supporting the transfer of territory from Ukraine to Russia. And in particular, the Donbas region, Crimea, and then they occupy parts of two other regions, Zaporizhia and Kherson. And he wants to see whether Trump would commit to Ukraine being pressured to hand over that territory. I think he's misreading Trump. I don't think Trump is going to do that at all. I think he's going to say, look, there's got to be a deal here. I'm not just going to, cause Ukraine to surrender. And remember, before going into this meeting, Putin actually increased his demands. He's occupying parts of those four provinces already. He said he wants Ukraine to withdraw from territory in the Donbas that it doesn't currently control, that Russia doesn't currently control, as well as hang on to the parts of Zaporizhia and Kherson. So this is actually demanding everything. I don't think Trump's going to be very satisfied with the conversation, but I also don't think that he's ready to pressure Ukraine to accept a bad deal like that.
Okay, and Zelensky, so far, not going to be there at this particular meeting, but also the EU and NATO won't be there. And President Trump has shored up the relationships with NATO and has got them to commit to putting more money into their own defense. Yeah. They're very concerned. And what do you think of Putin trying to just drive a wedge again between President Trump and the EU?
Yeah, well, that's exactly Putin's strategy, as you say. He wants to deal directly with the U.S. over the heads of the Ukrainians and over the heads of the Europeans. But as we know, first off, President Trump is not in a position to cut a deal with Putin because it's not his territory. It's not his country. It's Ukraine. So the Ukrainians have to agree if there's going to be any deal. And secondly, the Europeans are on the hook to actually back it up. When we talk about defense spending, buying American arms, providing them to Ukraine, security of NATO, security of the European Union, that is all on the line. And so the Europeans who have to actually put up the funding for all this, they want to be sure that they agree with where this is going too.
There was talk yesterday that nothing will actually happen unless there are security guarantees for Ukraine. Is that even possible at this point? And who's doing the guaranteeing?
Yeah. No, I think it is possible. I'll tell you where I think this wants to go. It wants to be a ceasefire in place just where it is, that the fighting stops. No recognition of Russia's illegal claims to Ukrainian territory, but no fighting to take it back. We just have a tense standoff. That then enables the EU and European NATO states to lean in, help build up Ukraine's military, their politics, their economy, get them stronger, and provide security guarantees that they will help to ensure that there aren't further Russian attacks once a ceasefire is in place. And then this situation can last a long time, just like we had a divided Germany for 40 years, and just like we had the Baltic states occupied for 40 years. This can last a long time, but it can create some measure of stability and lack of fighting so Ukraine can start to rebuild itself.
So would you characterize this Friday's meeting as a step in possibly more meetings, or will there be a deal that they announce on Friday?
Yeah, I do not expect a deal at all, partly because Putin's not ready to deal. He wants everything. And partly because President Trump knows that he can't make a deal with Putin and then just turn to the Ukrainians and say, now you implement it. The Ukrainians have a stake in this. So I don't expect a deal. But I do see what Trump is doing. He is stirring the pot. He's getting everybody talking. He's raising expectations that Putin needs to stop the war. And he is setting the stage for, I believe, a Trump-Zelensky-Putin meeting later on.
All right. Kurt Volker, thank you. We will hopefully talk to you again soon.